All right. What up, tycoons? What up, traders? Super excited for today's video. Gonna break down Filecoin, okay? Ticker symbol FIL. We're gonna be looking at the daily chart here. Gonna give you guys a complete breakdown of the entire chart history. We're gonna start here in the past and go through the chart patterns, okay, such as a wedge here, a bull flag. We're gonna go over the MACD, all right, and the buy and sell signals on the MACD. And we're going to take a look at the relative strength index for any divergences. This is where the price action is doing something different than the relative strength index. When they're doing different or opposite things, that's what's known as a divergence. And you're really going to learn a lot, and it hopefully will teach you something and perhaps help you set up and make your trading and investment strategies a little bit better. All right, so make sure to smash the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And I do viewer requests every single week. So leave a comment down below on a specific ticker you would like me to analyze for you. I'll be happy to do that for you as soon as I can. This one was a viewer request, so I'm going to jump straight into it now and let's do it. The first thing that we're going to look at, all right, is one of my favorite patterns. It's known as the wedge. So this one here is a descending wedge. It's a bullish pattern where you're going to see the candles, consolidate through this range until you have a breakout to the upside, right? And typically a full wedge playout will take you up to the top of where the wedge began on a descending wedge. That would be a perfect playout. And as you can see, that's right where we ended up closing shortly afterwards after that breakout. We also had another signal here to get in on this play after the initial breakout, right? We had a breakout, come back down, a retest, all right? And then we ultimately got the move upwards. But if we look at our MACD over here, right? Our sell signals and our buy signals are basically going to be this blue line right here. So we see it come down. All right, that's technically a sell signal. And then right here, we got it to cross over. So we broke out, we retested, and we went higher. And we also got a nice buy signal on our MACD. So, that's two things you could have combined there, right? You had a bullish chart pattern, and then you got a bullish buy signal off of the MACD. Really, really massive gains, after those signals there. And once we broke out of there, we ended up forming a bull flag, right? And so here's our bull flag. There's lots of different ways you can chart up a bull flag, but essentially you have your flag pole, then you have the flag itself right here. You see a little bit of sideways consolidation. Sometimes it's a slightly bearish channel. We could have drawn a channel like this basically, all right, and had the flag like that. But essentially, once you break out past the highs, you're going to see a nice move to the upside. And we got that on Filecoin, and it just kept going, right? It just kept going and going and going, ultimately reaching highs up here of about 250, about 236, 240, all right, is what we'll call it. And now we're going to look at our relative strength index. So I want to highlight, I've already highlighted it, but I want to point out to you guys, we have a high right here. We have a higher high right here. And then we have another higher high right here. Now look at our relative strength index. This is going to show you the strength of a token at its given price, right? And so what we saw was we saw a very dramatic move right from here all the way up to 240. And the relative strength index actually basically stayed flat and went slightly lower. So that's what's known as a divergence. When you're seeing this big move to the upside, very dramatic, right? Like, let's look at the percentages here. We have roughly a 350% move, but the relative strength index didn't go any higher. The strength of this token didn't get any stronger. It actually slightly decreased at those levels, right? And if we take a look from those highs, all right, to the drop that it had, that was a 58% drop, ended up dropping 78% from those highs. Now that was a nice signal once you're seeing, this bearish divergence. So you're seeing a bearish divergence there. And then you combine that with the MACD. If we look at our MACD, we got a sell signal as well. So it started to set up the information to, either sell or get out of this or short this, however you want to look at it. Not only were we creating much higher highs, but not creating higher highs on the relative strength index, we got a very nice sell signal here. And if you look, from basically this day on the sell signal, right, that was still a nice drop, a 38% drop, and then a 68% drop. So let's move forward and let's see what else we found on the chart. Okay. Right here, the next thing we're going to highlight is the opposite of bearish divergence, and it's actually going to be a bullish divergence. So again, let's take a look at the RSI. all right, which again is the relative strength index. And what we're seeing is we're making lower lows, and we're clearly in a downtrend, right? We have a lower low here, lower low here. We're in that downtrend, but our relative strength index right here has a low, a higher low, and another higher low, and it's creating a very nice bullish divergence trend line. This is an indicator that we may see some bullish activity in the future, right? So, was there any other signals? Well, we also had a nice buy signal right here. And this was a nice little move. All right, that was about 48% move off of the buy signal there. So we're seeing that, and then it's like, okay, well, we got this buy signal, and we're looking, and we're really just seeing the MACD, the blue line, is just hovering around it, right? It's hovering around this orange line, not giving us super clear signals. But we're starting to see this bullish divergence forming off of the relative strength index, right? And right here is when you get both of them firing off at the same time. So at the same time that you have the bullish divergence formation, you get a nice buy signal right there. So that is an even stronger indicator we might see a rally, and that resulted in a 200% rally. Okay, so the main takeaway of this is no one thing is guaranteed, but once you start to combine lower lows with the higher lows, right? And then you combine a buy signal, you're starting to get 2 out of 3 things that we're looking for on the charts, showing together. And that's really what I like to do, right? Is I like to take the tools that I have, and then I want to see, more than one signal, right? I want to see maybe a chart pattern and a divergence, or I want to see maybe, a divergence and a MACD sell signal or a MACD buy signal. And once you can get all 3, then that's really, really nice. All right, so the next pattern that we're going to look at is actually going to be a chart pattern, all right, known as the inverse head and shoulders. So you have a head and shoulders which is a bearish pattern. The opposite of that is an inverse head and shoulders. And what we're seeing again is a combination of 2 signals, right? So right here, we have our left shoulder forming. We got the head right here. We got our right shoulder forming, and you could have, traded this once we got above the neckline, right? And then we also had a buy signal here on the MACD. Okay, so let's say you just use the MACD, right? You get in around here, you catch this nice move up, and then you see the pullback, but you notice that, okay, well, this is forming an inverse head and shoulders. If we're able to, keep this right shoulder right here, we could continue heading back upwards. Ultimately, it did go a little bit higher, but not very much higher. All right. So it wasn't like it wasn't a 100% trade, 200% trade like those other ones. Another thing we have here, okay, is going to be an inverse cup and handle. This is a bearish pattern, right? And what you do is it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, you have your cup right here, you have your handle right here, and once you break through this baseline, right, you're going to get a nice sharp move to the downside. All right, and what do you know? Basically, right around once we start to break that, we also got a sell signal right here on the MACD, and that was a nice combination that you could have used to be a part of this price action, right? Let's look at the drop there, and that was over 30-40% right there, almost on that drop off of the inverse cup and handle combined with the MACD sell signal. We'll come over here, and now we have the head and shoulders that I was discussing earlier. All right, so same thing, we're seeing we have a left shoulder forming, we have a head forming, we got a right shoulder forming. And once we break that neckline there, or this little trend line right here, okay, we get that nice push down, ultimately dropping the price action lower. And as a result of that, we ended up forming a rising wedge, which was the opposite of the descending wedge. So you're going to see the candles bounce, zigzag in between these areas before breaking that trend line to the bottom side ultimately, and coming down right to where right to where it started. So we talked about when, the wedges play out perfectly, it's going to go all the way back to the beginning, right? And we did end up going all the way back to the beginning. So the head and shoulders and the rising wedge right there were both perfect. Those played out very, very nicely. All right. And now we're starting to repeat some of the same patterns. Now we're seeing another inverse cup and handle. So sometimes these are a little bit more tricky for people to identify, but basically just look for these rounded tops. Okay. It's more bullish when you get zigzags like these, right? Like when you get an A wave up, a B wave down, a C wave up. Okay. But these rounded tops like that, you need to start charting those, right? Start looking for those rounded tops. Okay. And once you see a little bounce, all right, because really this is a double bottom. We have a bottom here, a bottom here. We did get a slight bounce, right? But it got rounded after that. And then we came over, formed the handle for our inverse cup and handle. And again, you basically take the move from this high to the base of the candle or to the base of the cup. And you take that arrow, you put it down here at the bottom, and you will get that nice projected move all the way to the downside. That did end up playing out very nicely here. And we had a very nice drop on there. Let's take a look at that measured move, right? And from our baseline all the way down was 51% was the measured move. It ended up dropping as much as 63% and ultimately 73% on that. All right, the next thing we're going to look at again is some bullish divergence. And it's kind of just like the bearish divergence we saw in the very beginning. So what we had here, all right, was pretty much a relatively triple bottom, right? We have a low here, we have a low here, we have a low here. We're holding the same level. So the price is staying consistent, bottoming out, but the relative strength is increasing dramatically, right? At each one of those points, we created a higher low. We have this very strong trend line to the upside now, while the price stayed very, very flat. That was a nice indicator that we could see some bullish activity. And I believe also right here, yeah, right here, the MACD was already hovering above. So that kind of lets you know too. It's like, okay, well, things are staying pretty flat, but if we look at the MACD, all right, the MACD is the blue line is over and it's just hovering over it, right? And ultimately at this point right here, once we bounced off of the third bullish divergence point, that's when we also see the MACD start to explode to the upside. And that was a nice upside move. Some really good trade profit potentials right there. That went up about 121%, right? So this is what I mean by sometimes you have to combine some signals, use some of the things together. Nothing's 100% guaranteed, but it gives you a little bit more ground to stand on, a little bit more of an edge when you can combine one, two, or three things together. All right. Right there, we basically had three things. We had a triple bottom, we had the MACD, and we had bullish divergence on the RSI. So, really good signals there. And once you start to see multiple signals forming, all right, remember, not 100% of the time, but that's when you really get those big moves is when there's people that only look at the MACD. There's people that only look at the RSI. There's people that only look at charts. So when you combine these and you use all three, there's three separate things that traders are looking at. And, typically that's when you'll see some big moves. All right. So right now we're looking at the current price action. What are we seeing? Okay. Well, to me, what I'm seeing is the wedge pattern, and I'm seeing a little bit of bullish divergence. Okay, we're zigzagging in between this area right here, consolidating. It's getting very tight in this wedge now. So we are coming up on this trend line. We could get rejected and head down lower, bounce back up, and ultimately break down. That would negate this pattern and cancel it out. But we do have a slight bullish divergence, right? We have a low here, we have a low here, we have a low here, and we have a slightly higher low right here. So what we're seeing is we're seeing the price action dropping, but we're seeing the relative strength index slightly increasing. Again, this is a hint that we may see some bullish activity in the future. Nothing's guaranteed. Really what we're going to look for, all right, on top of this bullish divergence and this bullish chart pattern is we're going to take a look at the MACD, and we want to see this blue line make a sharp move above it and be able to start trading above this orange line. Right now, it's just barely curling up on it. It's kissing it. Okay, where our histogram is right over here. We're starting to see some green coming in. We want this to turn green, all right, and we want this blue line to really make a nice move upwards and kind of do a little bit of this direction, while also holding this bullish divergence trend line. All right, so if we do pull back, all right, the main thing you want to see is the RSI going to be able to hold this trend line and bounce, right? Or are we going to blow through this? If we blow through that level, most likely we'll end up blowing through this bottom trend line right here and ultimately negate out and cancel out this pattern. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Okay, so hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you learned a little bit about the MACD, a little bit about the RSI and divergences. Maybe you learned about some easy chart patterns that you can start to chart up yourself. If so, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe, and don't forget about those viewer requests that I do every single week.